Rose, can I ask you something before we even start?
Sure.
Think of the last time you really failed at something. Not a small slip, a real one. Did you tell yourself, I failed at that? Or did you tell yourself, I am a failure?
Oh, that's a heavy way to open an episode, Jack.
I know, but sit with it for a second, because there's a version of you that separates the two, and a version that doesn't. And I think most of us don't even notice which one we're doing.
Honestly, for a long time, I didn't separate them at all. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rose and Jack, Everyday English. This is the place where you can improve your English through calm, natural conversations about life, mindset, and everyday moments. I'm Rose.
And I'm Jack.
And today we're talking about failure, what it actually teaches you, once you get far enough away from it to see clearly.
Because in the moment, failure feels like a verdict, like the story's over. But almost every time, it turns out to be more like a teacher who grades hard.
If you're a B1 or B2 learner, this episode is for you. And if you're a stronger or newer learner, just relax, listen, and enjoy the conversation.
So let's start with that question I asked. I failed versus I am a failure. Why does that distinction even matter?
Because one is about an event and the other is about your identity. I failed the exam. That's information. It tells you something didn't work. But I am a failure, that's not information anymore. That's a label. And labels are sticky. They follow you around.
They become part of how you see yourself.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Nobody's born making that jump automatically. It's learned. Somewhere along the way, a lot of us were taught, maybe without anyone meaning to teach it, that failing at something means something is wrong with you.
Rather than something is wrong with the approach.
Right. And once you make that switch in your head from the approach didn't work to I don't work, you stop being curious about the failure. You just want to hide from it.
That's such a good point, actually, because curiosity is the whole engine here, isn't it? If failure is just data, you lean in and ask, okay, what if
You run, or you freeze, or you just quietly decide not to try that thing again. And that's the real cost, not the failure itself, but the retreat afterward.
Can I say something that took me way too long to figure out?
Please.
Failure doesn't actually have an opinion about you. It's neutral. It's just an outcome. We're the ones who attach a story to it.
Say that again slower, because I want people to actually catch that.
Failure doesn't have an opinion about you. You're the one writing the story on top of it.
That's going to end up as a quote card somewhere. I can feel it.
Maybe, but it's true. Think about it this way. A scientist runs an experiment and it doesn't confirm the hypothesis. Do they think, I am a bad scientist? No. They think, interesting, that's not what I expected. Let me adjust. That's it. That's the whole mindset shift we're talking about.
I like that comparison because it removes the shame from it completely. It just becomes information you didn't have before.
Right. And once you strip the shame out, failure actually becomes kind of valuable, like genuinely useful, not just useful in a motivational poster way.
I'll tell you something small that happened to me. A few years ago, I applied for a role I really wanted, and I didn't get it. And for about 2 days, I made it mean something huge, like I'm clearly not good enough for that level of work.
And then?
And then a friend asked me a simple question. She said, "Did they tell you why?" And I actually went back and asked. Turned out it wasn't about my ability at all. It was about timing, budget, someone internal already lined up. None of that was about me as a person. It was just circumstances.
But you had already built a whole identity crisis around it before you even had the facts.
Completely. And that's the trap, right? We fill in the blanks with the worst possible story, and then we react to our own story instead of what actually happened.
That's such a human thing to do, though. Silence and uncertainty are uncomfortable, so the brain rushes to fill them in.
Which gives us a nice line, actually. Silence doesn't create your thoughts, it reveals them.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'll take that.
So if I'm hearing you right, the first move isn't feel better about failing, it's get the facts before you write the story.
Yes. Facts first, meaning second. Most people do it backwards, meaning first, and they never even check the facts.
That's genuinely a youthful habit, not just a nice idea.
It is. And once you start asking what actually happened here instead of what does this say about me, failure stops being this scary, identity-threatening thing. It becomes something much smaller and much more useful, just a data point.
A data point you can actually learn from, instead of a wound you just carry around.
Exactly.
All right, after the break, I want to tell you about a failure of mine, a real one, not a polished version.
Ooh, I'm ready for this.
Stay with us.
Welcome back. Okay, Jack, you promised us a real failure. Let's hear it.
All right, so a few years back, I started a small side project, a newsletter actually, about language learning. I was so sure it was going to take off.
How long did you work on it?
About 8 months, writing every week, trying to grow the audience, tweaking the format constantly. And it just never grew. I think at the end, I had maybe 40 subscribers.
Ouch. 8 months for 40 people?
Yeah, and in the moment, it felt devastating. Like, genuinely, I remember sitting there thinking, I'm clearly not cut out for this kind of work.
That's the identity jump again, right there.
Exactly what we just talked about. But here's what's interesting. A year later, I looked back at that failed newsletter, and I realized it taught me 3 specific things. 1, I actually hate writing alone, without another voice to bounce ideas off, which is partly why this podcast with you works so well for me.
I'll take that. Aw, that is sweet.
It's true, though. 2, I learned that I was choosing topics I thought people should want instead of asking what they actually wanted. And 3, I learned I really don't enjoy the technical side of running something solo. The website, the email tool, all of it.
So the failure basically handed you a list of self-knowledge you couldn't have gotten any other way.
That's exactly what it was. It didn't feel like a gift at the time. It felt like 8 wasted months. But looking back, I don't think I could have learned those 3 things by reading about them or being told them. I had to actually fail to see them clearly.
Can I ask you something now?
Go for it.
Do you think you would have started this podcast if that newsletter had actually succeeded?
Honestly, probably not. If it had worked, I'd probably still be doing it right now, alone, writing into a document at midnight. The failure kind of pushed me towards something that fit me better.
That's the part people miss, I think. We treat failure and the next good thing as separate events, but so often the failure is the thing that clears space for the next thing.
It closes one door hard enough that you actually look around and notice the other doors were there all along.
That's good. Say that again. That's a quote line.
The failure closes one door hard enough that you finally notice the other doors were there all along.
Perfect.
What about you, though? Has a failure ever redirected you like that?
Actually, yes. Smaller scale, but same shape. I once bombed a presentation at work. Badly. Lost my train of thought halfway through. The whole room just sat there.
Oh, no.
It was rough, but afterward, my manager pulled me aside. Not to criticize, actually to help. And she said something that stuck with me. She said, "You didn't fail because you don't know the material. You failed because you tried to memorize it instead of understanding it enough to explain it your own way."
That's such a specific, useful piece of feedback.
It completely changed how I prepare for anything now. I stopped trying to sound polished and started trying to actually understand the thing well enough to talk about it like a person, not a script.
So the failure wasn't really about public speaking at all.
No, it was about depth of understanding. The bad presentation was just the messenger.
That's the whole idea, isn't it? Failure rarely tells you what you think it's telling you on the surface. You have to actually sit with it a bit to find the real lesson underneath.
Which takes patience, honestly, because your first instinct after failing is just to feel bad and move on as fast as possible.
And that's exactly the instinct that makes you skip the lesson entirely.
Welcome back. So we've talked about reframing failure as data instead of identity, and we've each shared a real failure that turned out to be more useful than it felt at the time. But I want to zoom out now, because there's a bigger pattern here that I think explains a lot.
Go on.
Have you ever noticed that the people who seem to succeed the most, not just in career, but in anything, relationships, creative work, whatever, they're almost never the people who failed the least. They're usually the people who failed the most.
That sounds backwards at first, but I think you're right.
It's not backwards once you think about the mechanics of it. If failing means you tried something, then failing more often literally just means you attempted more things. And if you attempt more things, the odds that some of them work out go up naturally. It's not magic, it's just volume.
So the person who's failed 20 times has also, by definition, taken 20 swings. And the person who's failed 0 times has probably taken close to 0 swings.
Exactly. Staying safe and staying still will protect you from failing, sure, but it protects you from succeeding too. You can't really separate the two. Risks come bundled together.
That reframes the whole thing for me, actually, because I used to think of highly successful people as people who just didn't fail very much, like they had some kind of instinct that helped them dodge mistakes.
I used to think that too, but almost every time you actually look closely at someone's story, underneath the polished version, there's a long trail of failed attempts that nobody talks about. The failures are just invisible because nobody posts about them.
We only see the highlight reel.
Right. We see the one novel that got published, not the 3 that got rejected everywhere. We see the successful business, not the 2 that quietly closed down first. Failure is just edited out of the story people tell in public.
Which gives people a distorted picture. They compare their behind-the-scenes failures to someone else's highlight reel, and they feel like they're uniquely bad at things.
When actually, if you could see the full, unedited version, you'd probably find just as much failure in that successful person's history, maybe more.
So if failing more is actually connected to succeeding more, what does that mean practically? Like, should we be trying to fail more often on purpose?
I don't think it's about chasing failure for its own sake. That would be a bit strange. I think it's more about not being so afraid of it that you stop attempting things. It's about lowering the emotional cost of failing, so it doesn't stop you from taking the next attempt.
Because if failure feels catastrophic every time, you'll naturally protect yourself by trying less.
Right, and that's the real danger. Not the failure itself, but the retreat that follows it. If one failed attempt makes you quit trying entirely, then that one failure has way more power over your life than it should.
There's a phrase for that, isn't there? Something like, it's not the failure, it's the flinch afterward that costs you.
That's good. Let's keep that one.
I actually think about this with language learning too, honestly, since that's kind of what we do here every week. People are so afraid of saying a sentence wrong out loud that they just don't speak at all, and staying silent feels safer in the moment.
But it guarantees they stay stuck exactly where they are.
Exactly. The person who says 10 wrong sentences a day is going to improve faster than the person who says 0 sentences out of fear of getting it wrong. The failure is actually part of the process, not a detour from it.
That's such a clean example because it's so visible. You can literally track it. More attempts, faster progress, even with more mistakes along the way.
So where does that leave us? What's the actual takeaway here?
I think it's this. Failure isn't a verdict on who you are. It's not a locked door either. It's more like tuition. It's the price you pay to learn something you genuinely couldn't have learned any other way.
Tuition, not a verdict. I like that a lot.
Because tuition means you're paying for something valuable. It's not punishment, it's an exchange. You give something, time, effort, comfort, and you get understanding in return. Painful understanding sometimes, but real understanding.
And nobody gets a full education without paying some tuition along the way.
Nobody, not one person who's ever built anything worth building.
So the next time something doesn't work out, a project, a conversation, an attempt at anything,
the question isn't, what does this say about me? The question is, what did I just pay for, and what do I get to walk away knowing now that I didn't know before?
Failure is tuition, not a verdict.
That's the whole episode, right there.
All right, now it's time for Word Walk. 5 youthful words from today's conversation.
First word, verdict. A verdict is an official decision about whether someone is guilty or not. We used it today to mean a final judgment about who you are. Example, failing an interview isn't a verdict on your worth.
Second word, retreat. As a verb, to retreat means to move back or withdraw from something, usually because of fear or discomfort. Example, after the failed presentation, she wanted to retreat from public speaking entirely.
Third word, flinch. To flinch means to react suddenly with fear or pain, often by pulling back slightly. We used it today about the emotional reaction after failing. Example, don't let one bad result make you flinch away from trying again.
Fourth word, bundled. When things are bundled, they're grouped or packaged together, so you can't easily separate them. Example, risk and reward often come bundled together in life.
And fifth word, tuition. Tuition usually means the money you pay for education, but here we used it to mean the price you paid to learn something valuable through experience. Example, that mistake was expensive, but I think of it as tuition.
5 solid words, straight from a real conversation. That's Word Walk for today.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. If this episode gave you a slightly different way to look at something that didn't go your way recently, then it did its job.
We'd genuinely love to hear from you, so here's our question for the comments. Think of a failure from your past that you now realize actually taught you something valuable. What was it, and what did it teach you?
Take your time with that one. Sometimes the real answer only shows up once you sit with the question for a minute.
If you're new here, we'd love for you to subscribe. Every episode is a calm, honest conversation like this one, made for anyone learning English while thinking through real life at the same time.
Every conversation is a step closer to speaking English naturally.
See you in the next episode, friends.